in this filming, when I'm looking at the editing program, I'm realizing that if I have a long segment I can cut out, it's easy to cut it out later. If I had a purpose in the long segment that was not the outcome I was looking for, but to inspire the outcome I was looking for, I could take up a lot of space and I could delete it later because that wasn't what I wanted. What I wanted to get was, like with you, I'd like to have a really, really honest interview. And starting it off with the right to sleep is not an end in itself. Where does that get you should you have the right to sleep? What would that give you?
To imagine the fantastic thing of some politically something in this real world happening where a judge is granted the authority to recognize the right to sleep during the day, which they don't. Then that day the real work would just begin. The idea of municipal public tenting zones would be the obvious next step. That's the one great thing that the city councils and the crowns will not pay attention to, is ever considering tent cities, a municipal public tenting zone.
But you see that as a solution, is that these public tenting zones. What would happen in them? What would be their structure?
It's not a solution. It's not something that it's not going to be a project that's implemented. It's just once the right is granted, there is naturally going to be a movement that's been suppressed for a long time, that has been building up. You can get in your head an idea of the commons, and if such a thing as the commons were reestablished, that they would all instantly fill up with tents. But back on point is that the cities never want to conject the idea of tent cities, because using the thought of the homeless are going to take over our parks is part of their ammo to foster the public opinion that that homeless people are some separate problem that is undeal-withable except with backroom psychotic policies.
Do you think that you could deal with the homeless problem with tent cities?
It's a very beautiful thing that has a life of its own, and once people begin to experience them, they'll see the natural order of the thing, that it takes care of itself. It's a hard to quantify, very real spirit of community. But
sorely lacking in these days. Well, like finding a community here is pretty difficult.
It has been a conscious effort to make money needed for community to gather. Therefore, it becomes exclusive to those without money. And so essentially they kill the freedom of community.
By not allowing everybody the same freedom and access to necessities.
No, essentially freedom has been monopolized.
We're all under the law.
we're all under the threat of persecution and the presumption of, well, not having the best presumed of us.
So what happens now? Now that like you're aware of that, you're before the courts. You're looking at a public that is pretty enslaved, and everybody's under this rule of law, and the law's not legit. The laws are not real. Like they force a condition of surrender onto us, and we're forced along their ways. Like we're listening to their laws, and we're not able to judge them in their judgment. We can't reach a judge on the open level.
Well, then it becomes a new level of recourse. It can be put that the Crown, the ruler of the constitutional monarchy of Canada, if its actions are seemingly unbecoming, because legally the Crown can do no wrong, if there is a naive correction to be made, if it has missing an evident obviousness of purpose, that the individual must recognize that they are as much responsible for correcting that. That if someone wants to enslave you, then it's sort of the slave's responsibility to grasp the nature of their slavery. That essentially slavery is a mindfuck, and it's on the slave to figure its way out.
Yeah, and that's what we're doing, trying to figure our way out of here. Because people know that the world's on an insane path. What they're doing is not making sense on a global scale. We're fighting way too many wars, and the economy's collapsing, the environment's toxic. Like we got problems everywhere, and we got to do something with them locally. This is a good thing I think you're doing. Like I think it's a noble stand to make, and I believe in these camps, and I'd like to see them happen. But getting the public involved in the decision process, it's not that easy to do. They're a hard public to. You can't depend on the newspapers anymore. Internet's being controlled by conglomerates, and it's a difficult. These are difficult times.
The only difficult part is getting to the point where you would rather die than follow the orders of a lie.
Exactly, David. Very well put. And so this is David and David on the beach, contemplating quantum physics.